Hello, everyone. I'm Steve. Mark's working late tonight, and this is Smokey Steve and Mark. Either welcome or welcome back, and happy Thursday. I hope everybody is well. I hope everybody is safe. Look after yourselves. Look after the folks around you in these increasingly curious times in which we live. So it is a Thursday. I haven't seen y'all on a Thursday in a while. I don't think we've done a story time maybe in a few weeks, actually. So we thought it was a good time to do one. I had a little bit of flex time at work, so I was able to get out a little bit early and get ahead of this too. So tonight's topic that we're going to be talking about, if you saw the thumbnail, maybe you caught wind of it. Um, it is National Suicide Awareness Month or National Suicide Month. The whole month of September. Well, the month of September. And there's different activities and different marches and different awareness raising events that go on. One of the activities through my work that we're doing is a number of different trainings each week. Yesterday, I did a training. I facilitated a training on mental health first aid and, how to assist someone in a crisis. Mental health first aid, think CPR, but for mental health. You encounter a person in a crisis, you decide if you're the person to jump in and help, and then you provide aid to the person until professional help can arrive. So, teaching through that, and then I go back and forth with another instructor because it's 8 hours. So we flop every hour and a half teaching. And my section was on suicide and how to assist someone who's in that position. So, okay, it's material. I'm at work. It's whatever. I'm not usually touched by teaching it so much. So I get home and I'm just Facebooking, people I know, people I don't, people I knew from 1,000 years ago, comparing my life to theirs, deciding mine is worse, insecure people on Facebook. It's me. So I run past some comments left on one of my ex's Facebook pages, a comment I saw, and it was the day before, and he had posted that he, in so many words, wanted to die. His situation was a little complicated. He's the ex before the Dixieland Booze Cruise guy, the one from Alabama. This is the guy before that who I dated. I think he was 19 and I was 20 or 21, and we actually lived together in a house he owned. He was very ahead of his time. We ended up splitting up because we just had different goals. I wanted to stay in the States. He ended up moving to Canada. Well, he lived, a pretty full, decent life, and then he got COVID. And it turned into long COVID. He was like half dead for 3 weeks when he got it. And it continued and it continued, and he's gotten worse as it's gone over time, and he's had loss of mobility. And he's lost weight, and he's looking rather thin, and he's in pain all the time now, and he just can't live with it. He's always been super active, super busy, cannot sit still, a workaholic, if I remember him, and those things are ingrained. I don't think that changed as he got older. And he put a post up on Facebook and said, I'm done with this. Thanks, everybody. Bye. I'm like, God. So we're not together. We don't really keep in touch, but he holds a place somewhere. He did it. I did love him at one point. So there's a piece of that still that kind of goes out to him, and I'm a little concerned. So after that, people are like, hello, are you home? Or what are you doing? Are you safe? What are you this? No reactions. Nothing. So fortunately, some close friends of his in the area where he's living, which is in the Yukon Territory, I believe, or the Northwest Territories. If y'all know Canada, he's in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. They reached out and called the authorities. They called 911, who went to his house and intervened, and apparently he's in a hospital in some sort of safe setting. If he's like I remember, he was very combative, didn't want to go, might have swung on an EMT. Just possibly, he might have hit an EMT, which is still a crime. You don't get to hit people in the face just because you're mentally ill. It may explain it, but it doesn't excuse it. So that was personal. That caught me kind of off guard. Mark had been following it too because my ex follows us on our Smokey Steve and Marc on Facebook. So it hit home really quick, after the talking about suicide for about 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours, and then it's a person in my life. Now I've lost friends to suicide, probably about 6. There is an unfortunate thing in recovery communities, because I've been in the drug and alcohol community, the 12-step community for a while, in and out of rehabs where you see some of the same people over and over again. outpatient drug and alcohol, mental health trips to the hospital. As a person who runs within these communities of trying to get well, getting well, trying to maintain health, unwell people are there, and unwell people sometimes take their lives, you know, and for any number of reasons, and it could be someone who's been saying they were going to do it for 5 years, and it could be someone who you thought was doing really, really well, and then they don't come in one day and then they're gone. So a lot of the people I knew who were my peers at the time that I was getting treatment, well, they're still peers now. I mean, people's is people's, but I remember them, and they passed away. And the addicts that I knew, the people with substance use disorders, suicide by overdose, suicide by drinking oneself to death, there was a couple of those that I knew as well. So it doesn't kind of faze me as much as it probably should. I'm a little numb to it, and it comes up at work a lot. Teenage stuff, like, it's difficult to process, but it's my job to kind of put that aside and be there for other people who are struggling and dealing with maybe another person's suicide. I want to tell you a little bit about mine. We are so not getting monetized, but this is an important topic, I think. I had attempted suicide 3 times, and I was in the hospital 5 or 6, but the times I actually made a full-out attempt and wasn't just unsafe and having suicidal ideation, I wasn't just thinking about it. I had a plan 3 times that I started to carry out, and 2 of them were overdoses, and 1 of them was cutting. It was so interesting the way I woke up. The first time I had tried to take my life, it was pills that I had taken. I had taken about 2 bottles worth of Advil. And I was very calm that day. I had a very quick change in demeanor when I decided I was going to do that. I was actually, I think, watching a movie with my mother in my sister's room. I was living at home, and would just go down the stairs to refill my beverage, get another soda, take another handful of Advil, go back upstairs. Like nothing had happened. I had kind of had this switch in demeanor, this little bit of peacefulness, which probably looked like I was happy and getting better, but I think I was dealing with what a lot of people do with suicide. I felt kind of relieved because I had a plan to get out of my pain. I was going to end my life, and it gave me a sense of calm that all this was going to be over soon. All the pain was going to stop. I didn't want to tell anybody, so I just did that, and I figured, well, I just won't wake up. So I wake up the next day. I should sound more grateful, but at the time, I'm trying to give you like a piece of my mind where I was really agitated about being alive. I was very ungrateful that I had lived through things I had lived through. I was very ungrateful for the help that I was getting. So we go to the psychiatrist in the morning, and I go see him, and we're in the crisis area, and he says, so you attempted suicide last night? And I'm like, yeah, but that's not why I'm mad. He's like, well, what's wrong? I said, it didn't work. That's why I'm mad. So they reserved a room in the psych ward. And by the time I got there, they kind of shooed me right in. That wasn't too bad. Usually I would go in drunk, and I'd have to wait in the ER for hours to see somebody. Another time, there was an attempt to take some pills. It was prescription medication that I had, an antipsychotic, and I was immobile for about a day and a half. I could have stopped breathing. It was scary. I think my parents thought I was drunk at that time. And if they knew anything else was going on, they certainly would have intervened. And I probably should have gone to the hospital. I mean, I fell asleep on my arm so bad that I couldn't move it for 20 minutes when I tried to get off of it, like fall asleep on your arm in your sleep. I was so immobile in sleep because I was practically comatose. I had pretty much dosed myself to sleep. I was taking an antipsychotic med, and I took, I don't even know, 20 times my regular dose or so. And then I woke up after that. 2 days later, I woke up. It was like a coma at home. I woke up. And then the other was the Mad Tea Party, which all of you have seen. And if you haven't, please go back and look for Storytime about the Mad Tea Party, where there was an incident of cackling, laughing, drinking Listerine, and slicing my arm up to Rachel Ray. Okay, so that happened. I can't really explain that one specifically. I was in a manic episode, a drug-induced one, as I was changing medications, and I really wasn't responding very well. And all the old habits came back in. I was reaching for anything at that point. When I was having suicidal thoughts when I was manic, like every other thought, it was one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And when I was watching TV and watching Miss Rachel Ray, I just got bored, found my way to the basement, found a box cutter, took the blade out, And just like many people say who self-injure, I felt like I was bursting out of my skin. I just needed some relief. And for me, it did provide that, but only for a minute. And then I needed more because, like any good person with a substance use disorder, I tend to always want more of everything. Why? I'm addicted to more. I just want more of everything. So it was more relief. So I continued to do that. And I think, building up my courage to take it further. That was what I had in my mind. I'm going to keep taking this further, and I'll get a little more drunk and a little more crazy, and it won't hurt as much. And it keeps consequences out of my head. Now, people would often say when a person's going to end their life, or if a person is planning to, or if a person's talking about it, how could you do that? Don't you care about your job? Don't you care about your wife? Don't you care about your children? Don't you care about your community, your fellowship, your anything like that? And I have to say that when I was in those positions, I can't speak for everybody, though a lot of folks I've spoken to who've had, suicide attempts have said, you just don't care. You just don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm like, when you're already mostly checked out, it's unfortunate, but you don't care. Like, in my head, I was thinking, I'd been quite a burden on my family, I believed. For about 5 years, I was sick when I was living with my parents. And sick is a mixture of trips to the psych ward, trips to rehab, outpatient, lose my license, I can't drive, ask my parents to drive me everywhere, and they pretty much do, for probation and all this and all that. I needed to be, like, reparented at that point. And they chose to do that. They didn't have to. I'm glad they did, but they didn't have to do that. Sorry, had to catch my breath there for a second. There was no way, I think, that I was going to have made it. I wouldn't have made it from, 2007 to 2012 without their help. And at the same time, for all the help they were giving me, in my head when I was feeling suicidal, I thought, well, they have 2 other kids. I'm high maintenance. Then they can, if I die, if I get myself out of the way, and this is meant to sound generous, it's kind of, it is. I didn't feel like it was selfish. I felt like it was the most generous thing I could do. I was like, I'm a burden, I'm a bother. You'll be sad, but you'll all get over it. And just let me get out of the way of what would be a better family without me. There's grandkids, there's picnics, there's not Uncle Steve dragging his ass through the house, comes down for Easter dinner looking half haggard, goes back up and hides in his room. Because I didn't think I was going to get better, so that's just what I predicted the whole time. I'm just going to be a sick hermit who never leaves the house. And so, no, I didn't really care if I died. And I thought it would be a favor to others if I did. That's a weird way of thinking. That's kind of a twisted way of thinking. But I can't say I felt any other way than that. The time that I was marginally, if not more than psychotic during the Mad Tea Party, I wasn't thinking much. I want to hurt myself probably flew through my head, and it's a thought I latched onto and then ran with it. There was probably 1,000 other things I could have done in that instance to try to give myself some relief. One of them was drinking. I had tried everything else I could think of to try to sleep, to calm down, to get my thoughts to stop racing, and it just wouldn't work. And I was like, I give in. I know booze isn't going to make me feel better, but it'll at least slow everything down. And then once you add alcohol to mental illness for me, it's bad. It's a mixed episode. I have bipolar type 1 with some psychotic features, and adding alcohol on top of that, and I was drinking Dollar Tree mouthwash on top of that. There's no way a good outcome could have come from that. I was just in the moment wanting to feel better. Just get me to the next moment. I just need some relief. I need something to take the edge off. And if I can't, I'm going to go use or I'm going to die. That's it. And then as it got towards the end of my drinking, it was, I don't care if I die, so I'll drink as much as I want, pass out, wake up, drink more, pass out. And if it kills me, oh well. I either want to get as high as possible or die. And it really doesn't matter to me either one. This kind of explains why, when I went to the doctor, I was really agitated that I woke up the next day. The training I was in yesterday, there were some drug and alcohol specialists, CRSs, like Mark is. There was a few of them. And they were talking about experiences administering Narcan, which if a person has had an overdose of heroin or opiates, you can administer to them, and it'll not just neutralize the effects of the heroin or whatever they've done, it'll throw the person into immediate withdrawal, which is uncomfortable. I've never been in opiate withdrawal, but if you've witnessed it, it looks really bad. It's not deadly necessarily, but the people look like they want to be dead. Um, and they had a couple people that they had get encountered who were overdosing on the street. They administered the Narcan. The person was sick, got up, no thank you, and ran off. Why? They had more drugs they wanted to do. They didn't mean to fall out, but they did. They're embarrassed. They're afraid the cops are going to come pick them up, and they have a bundle on them, and any number of reasons. So it's weird how at least my mind kind of works, and I think some other people's do too, about the kind of nonchalance of suicide, or the nonchalance of, well, I could always kill myself if this doesn't work. I could always just take my own life after that. I think of those weird circumstances, like, what would I do if Mark died? I already predict that if something happened to him, I'd probably spend a week or two in the psych ward. I don't know if I have the mental wherewithal and community support to keep me well. I think I would need someone to come over and sleep in the apartment with me for a few weeks. Big life emotional stuff, I'm not really equipped with to deal with on my own. When I try to, I get through the event and then fall into an Ophelian heap for the next 3 weeks. So, I don't know. Navigating emotions when you've been at the edge where you're like, I just give in, I'll just give up, who cares? It's really easy to get right back there again when things feel overwhelming. I was working at Temple when I was in college, right after college, and the director had passed away. And didn't really know him. We weren't close. He'd passed down the hallway. He mispronounced my name once he figured out the right one over a period of time. Nice guy, but he passed away. I took it so hard. Why? I don't know. I think I might have just been using his death as an excuse to drink. That's part of it. But it made me start thinking about death and morbidity and dying and mortality, not morbidity, mortality. And then there was another person who died. I had a coworker whose son was murdered, and went to the funeral for that. And there's the juxtaposition of the two. And it was really close together that it happened. And it was on my mind. And again, not about me, but I made it about me and started ruminating on death at the time. And that's when those thoughts started, and they carried through. Do I still have any of those thoughts? Sometimes in jest, and it's nothing to be sarcastic about, but in my own head, I'll be like, oh God, why don't I just take a bridge and get this done with? I tried to keep, as much as I tried to keep light and humorous in talking about mental health and mental health concerns and drug and alcohol concerns, suicide's kind of the one, it's not to be taken lightly, really. So if I encounter someone who I think may be suicidal, or if they come to me and tell me, professionally when it's happened, I had said, okay, when I was in rehab, I had a guy who came up to me, said he was suicidal. And I said, okay, well, have you hurt yourself? Have you done anything? And he rolled up his sleeves and he was covered in cuts. From his wrists to almost his shoulders, he was cut. He'd broken his lighter up to do it. And I was like, well, I don't know. He's like, what should I do? I said, well, I think you should tell staff, because now that you've told me, if you don't tell staff, I will. So I think we should go together and tell the staff what's going on. And we did, and they checked it, and he was taken to the acute area for a little bit just to get stable, and then he came back to the rehab so he can go back to working on his drug and alcohol concerns. So they wrapped up his mental health bit as best they could, and then came back to him. Asking someone if they're suicidal straight up does not put the idea in their head. There is no empirical evidence to support the idea that it puts it in their head to do it. It's a very uncomfortable question to ask another person. Do you feel like you want to kill yourself? Do you have a plan? Do you have the means to carry it out? And then if you get some yeses, what do I do with that information? How can I support someone who just told me this? Yes, I want to die. Or if it's the ex that calls you at 2 a.m, drunk, and says, without you, I can't live. It's a lot of burden on the person on the other end of the phone, especially if someone says, without you, I'll die. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. Uh, just being with a person, just talking with the person. I've never worked a suicide hotline. There's a couple other folks I worked with who did, because they've worked every job in human services. And they've said suicide hotline is probably the most fulfilling when it goes well, because you really do feel like you're talking a person from the brink of death back into not saving their life necessarily, just taking them a few steps back from the edge so they have a little more time to think, just a little more time to process it, just a little more time to go, maybe, maybe no. All you need is that few seconds to get the person to think, maybe. And if they can't think, at least get them to wait, and talk. I've had good success talking with wildly violent people when I was at a state hospital, and I've been in the community with other folks. And I'm not particularly afraid of getting hit, and I'm relatively calm for the most part. So if I've sat with people who've been very upset, usually sit next to, not straight across from, because this much eye contact can be intimidating to anyone. So kind of like, if they think I'm not looking at them, I look at them. If they don't want to be looked at, I look at the floor. Meeting people with where they're at emotionally. So when someone has called the office before and said they were suicidal, I talk to them, kind of talk them down, give them resources of who to call if it happens again, offer to do the 3-way call with the help if they want to do it, try to connect them to some resources. I can't go to their house and sit with them all day. That's not practical. I can say, call me tomorrow at 12 and let me know how your night went. But then I have to be there at 12. I can't just say, call me tomorrow sometime. That's too vague. If I say, why don't you check with me tomorrow? Give me a call at 12 on my lunch break and I'll answer, and then we'll talk for, 10, 15 minutes. And then that gives that person something to do the next day. And then they'll reach out and talk to me. And then maybe the next day. Just someone to reach out to. And if you can be that person for somebody else, I think it's good to be that person for somebody else. Not everybody can. Not everybody's built for it. Not everybody has the patience for it. Some people, it's way too close to home. Just suicide is an issue where sometimes the more you know about it, the less you want to deal with it. If it's been in your family, if it's been a spouse, a kid, a close friend, the closer it is to your life, the less you want to deal with it. You don't want to talk to anybody. Or you may have insight that you wish to share as someone who's seen it from the inside out. I'm of the inside out type because it's been friends of mine who've passed. So I can only, share memories of them. And I have good memories of them. I hadn't seen any of them die. I never went to any of their funerals. I remember them the way they were when they were healthy, when they were alive, when they were cracking jokes at dinner, when we were in treatment, and chain smoking outside, trying to put our lives together and make a sense of the mess we made. That's how I remember them. I don't remember obits. I try not to think about the other stuff. Not because it makes me sad necessarily. It just makes me feel it makes me feel a little hopeless for the cause of, recovery, because I'm thinking they all wanted it too. They all wanted to live, and they had mental health concerns, and they had drug and alcohol concerns, and they were working harder than I was, as hard, if not harder. And I lived, and they've died. And I don't know why. I don't know why I was the one. Of my little group of friends, there was me and the carny and the guy who was a golf player. We were a weird group of clusters that hung out at my last rehab. And 2 of the guys died. The other 2 died, and I was the one who lived. It was like almost the Golden Girls. What do we do when there's only one of us left? We had a similar conversation, and I'm the one who's left. It's weird. It's weird to make a pact with people and then, oh, we're going to get sober and then we'll go do this, and then the other person isn't sober or they die. What do you do when your friends die? I just try to hold on to the memories that I had that were good of them and shoot a prayer up or a thought up. I don't usually walk through the store, and if I see something, if I hear carnival music, I don't say, oh, hey, Willie, out the window. I don't really see pennies from heaven or cardinals or blue jays or any of that stuff. But every once in a while, I'll hear someone repeat something they said, kind of, sort of, and it brings me back. So for me, there's no stigma if a person dies by suicide, because they had whatever reason they had to do it. I don't do the whole "you're going to go to hell" thing because that's not my prerogative. I don't do threats with people if they tell me they're suicidal. I'm going to call CPS. We're going to take your kids away. Da, 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 da. There's other routes to reach people, I think, besides threatening and nagging. And when I think about it, I miss them. I miss them. And I hope my friend, my ex, not the Dixieland Booze Cruise guy, I don't really care what happens to him, but I hope my ex is okay. Right now he's safe in a hospital from what I understand. The police were called and he was taken somewhere safe. And again, I'm sure he's not thrilled with it. But that's all that can be done for him right now. Just kept safe. And what does he do when he leaves? They can't hold him forever. And he knows the system. Yes, I feel safe. Yes, I can contract for safety, meaning I won't hurt myself meaning I won't hold the hospital accountable if I hurt myself when I leave. Pretty much. So, I don't know. I guess I'll see with him. It was nice to do a little memory lane. I know this video has some down parts to it, and it has a lot of kind of morose topics about people passing away and dark feelings and stuff like that. But there's hope at the end of it. There's hope. You know, mental illness can be managed. You know, lives can be rebuilt. I don't know if I talk about the word cured or recovered in the past tense. I wouldn't use it for me because I'm still, you know, the medications and the treatment take me from wildly insane to quirky, I would say. And I can live and function in the world and have goals and do things more than just sit in a day program. I've been fortunate to respond well to treatment too. You know, when I follow the course of treatment that's recommended, you know, when I'm sick, I deal with being sick, but most of the time I'm fine. So I would hope that for other people who are struggling, if you're struggling, I hope you're hanging on to some hope. Things do get better. Sometimes quick, sometimes slow, but they do. And the help, this is the only advice I have from personal experience. The help comes from the weirdest effing places. Oh my God. Just pay attention in the supermarket or in traffic. Help for me has come from the strangest and most unlikely places I ever thought it would. When I wasn't feeling well and I bump into someone from high school in the street, or I see an old teacher or an old therapist, you know, a day when I was drunk on mouthwash and bumming around Scranton with my laptop, just doing nothing. And I run into somebody I was in jail with and they ask how I'm doing. And I'm thinking, I was doing better when we were in jail and you're doing better than me now. And the old competitive, God, Steve, you're such a loser voice kicks in. And then but different conversations would pop up here and there. And like the job I landed, I just knocked on a door looking for a volunteer job, and now I've worked there 7 years. So help comes from the weirdest places. Purpose comes from the weirdest places. What am I going to do with my life? Well, I don't know what I'll do for the rest of my life, but for right now, it's pretty okay. Good relationship, good fiance, place to live, food in the fridge, little money in the bank. We got some wheels, we can drive around. We were fortunate enough to have money to go on a vacation. We got to the beach. It was really fun. So, you know, we have it good now. So no, I don't feel like life's in a bad place for me. And hopefully I continue to feel that way. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about the topic, that I'm watching a friend go through it at the moment. It's happening to him, not me. So I'm not looking for sympathy for me. I was just using him as an example of things happen in the weirdest way. He caught COVID and now he's in a psych ward because he can't live with the physical complications of it. So that's just, you know, one way people find their way there. It's not always what you think. It's not always the typical. I mean, he's a professional. He's a teacher at the college level, teaches French, you know, but he can't do it. He can't work, and he lost the will to do anything. So my only thing that's kind of hopeful is that he left a post on Facebook, because I think if he was going to do something, him specifically, knowing him, I think he would have left a note, but not on Facebook. You know, if he was going to do it, he would just go do it, which makes me think somewhere in there he wanted somebody to help pull him out of the way he was. But I don't know. That's his prerogative. That's his life. I sent him a message on Facebook Messenger, and I was like, what's all this nonsense about you killing her in the South? We have a different rapport. It's not how I would choose to speak to anybody else, but he and I have a different kind of relationship post-breakup. We send messages to each other about twice a year. It's not very often, but you can pick up where you leave off with some people. And he was a good guy. It was we totally broke up amicably. There was no cheating, there was no drinking. It was just we want different things, and we both cried, and it was over. So I'm hoping he's okay. I'm hoping this discussion didn't freak you out too much. Maybe gave you some insight into my motives when I wanted to do it, his motives, what can be done maybe to help a person who's going through this, and that there is hope. It's not forever, usually. And that help comes from weird effing places. So even keep your ears open at Turkey Hill or Wawa. You never, seriously, it comes from the strangest places. And it's usually there when you need it. I'm not saying it's part of a grand plan or you're blessed with it or praise be. I'm just saying it seems to be how it works. I don't know why. I don't know if I care why. But I just trust that it's there, and suddenly it's there. So thank you all for watching. Please do subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get alerts when we have new videos and also when we go live. You can follow us on Facebook at SmokeySteveAndMarc or on Instagram at SmokeySteveAndMarc. Our email address and contact info is listed down below as well. Thank you again, and we'll catch up with you soon. I want to say tomorrow. I'm pretty sure tomorrow, but I can only say soon, okay? Thanks for watching. Bye!